everyone. I'm Stephanie Tsai. Welcome back to the Toyota Solutions studio here at Women in the World in New York City. I am so pleased to be joined by Komal Ahmad, who is the founder and CEO of a terrific and innovative company called Copia. She is also a 2016 Toyota Mother of Invention, and it's so great to see you again, Komal.
So great to be here.
Why don't we start by talking about the problem that you identified. You were living in Northern California. You noticed a lot of food was going to waste, and there are a lot of people that need food.
Yeah, so Copia is solving the world's dumbest problem. We believe that in a world with so much technology, so much innovation, so much abundance, issues like hunger shouldn't exist, especially not when we waste 3 times more food than there are mouths to feed. And so what we've discovered is it's not a lack of food that's the issue, it's just an ineffective distribution of that food. So hunger is not a scarcity problem, it's a logistics problem. And that's the logistics problem that we're solving. And what we've done is we've created a platform that connects businesses, so corporate cafeterias, hospitals, universities, hotels, et cetera, that have high quality excess food. And we've built an algorithm that'll essentially match that exact amount and type of food to the nonprofit or nonprofits that could accept it at that day, that time, that quantity of food. It'll automatically dispatch a driver to go pick up the food, drop it off directly to the nonprofit. The nonprofit signs this automated, digitized tax deduction receipt that allows these businesses to get tens of thousands to tens of millions of dollars back easily, seamlessly. And they'll also send back photos and testimonials of the people that were fed. So you get to see the impact that you made by spending just a few minutes of your time essentially going Copia.
I love the elevator pitch, and now I'm going to unpack it because there's a lot in there, I know, and not everybody might have caught on. First of all, so you've got two big, sides of this. Yes. You have the hotels and the cafeterias that might have a lot of unused food.
Yes.
And then you have the nonprofits.
Yes.
On both sides of that equation, how large have you grown on each side? And I know you started in Northern California, but how much has it expanded from that?
Yeah, so we're going to feed 2 million people this year with food that would have otherwise been wasted. And we are now expanding across the country. So we are in LA, Austin, Denver, Dallas, North Carolina, RTP. So we're expanding to cities really, really rapidly. Recently we also responded to a natural disaster. So, California suffered some of the world's worst wildfires in history. And Copia was the first on the ground. So before FEMA, before Salvation Army, before American Red Cross could even mobilize, Copia was on the ground providing tens of thousands of meals to our fire evacuees, to our first responders, to 500 members of our National Guard who were otherwise eating MREs. And I'm not sure if you know what MREs.
I do.
Yeah, just like wartime meals.
Years.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and we're providing them just like incredible food. So we partnered with SF Fights Fire to provide over 36,000 meals in the first 2 weeks of a natural disaster.
So the algorithm was able to sort of change gears in a way. I mean, that's really exciting. Does that represent a new phase for Copia?
Yes. I mean, right now we're moving the most perishable resource there is, right? Which is food. Nothing goes bad quicker than food.
You got to be fast.
Exactly. So you have to be really fast. And now that we've built proprietary technology that has mastered the redistribution, the match.com, so to speak, of those who have to those who are in need, we can now use the same type of technology, the same type of algorithm to help redistribute medicine, medical supplies, books, clothing, because it's not a lack of any of these resources, it's just an ineffective distribution of those resources. So the key is, how do we use this technology to help solve all of these excess issues? How do we solve these waste issues, and how do we do it at scale? And so that's what Copia is doing. And also for the businesses that work with us, we're also providing them data and analytics on helping them understand, why is this waste happening? Is it Indian food? Is it Chinese food? Is it on Mondays? Is it on Fridays? Is it raining outside so these employees don't want to come to work? Why is this waste happening, and how do we help them reduce this over time? And we want to do that across industries and across
Again, you're so smart that so much comes at me, and the first thing that occurs to me is that you're really part of the sort of data revolution. Really, what you're talking about is functionality that arises from analyzing data. Is that how it started, and is the heart of the business really? I mean, there's the business model, which we'll get to, but is it the algorithm and the success of that?
It is. I mean, so, Copia started when I was a senior at Berkeley, so a few years ago, and I was walking down Telegraph Avenue, and I encountered a homeless man who was begging for food. And something about him compelled me to stop and invite him to join me for lunch. And during lunch, he sat across from me, just like you are, scarfing down his food. So he was unbelievably hungry. It wasn't a ploy for anything else. And in between bites, he shared his story. He said, "My name is John. I just just came back from my second tour in Iraq. I've been waiting weeks for my military benefits to kick in. And because they haven't, I haven't eaten in 3 days. And
that should not happen in this country.
That should not happen. And I mean, this is the veterans, and when you give the most selfless sacrifice for our country, only to come home to face yet another battle, that of hunger and even of homelessness. And then adding insult to injury, right across the street, Berkeley's dining hall is throwing away thousands of pounds of perfectly edible food. And so it's this very stark reality of those who have and waste and those who are in need and starve, and those two people right across the street from one another. And I realized, right, this is emblematic of a much larger problem, and that's that we waste over 365 million pounds of perfectly edible food every day. So to put that in perspective, imagine the world's largest football stadium filled from top to bottom, not with pizza and popcorn and leftover food from your plate, or leftover pad thai from last night's dinner, but untouched, unopened, amazing food. And while that's happening in places like Silicon Valley, one of the wealthiest places on the planet, 1 in 4 don't know where their next meal is coming from.
What's so exciting about what you're talking about with this disaster response to the wildfires is really you're talking about potentially eliminate other types of waste. Right. So books, for example. I mean, how many people have used books, and then how many classrooms in America can't get their hands on books and pencils and things that other people just consider trash?
Right. Medicine, medical supplies.
So is that your next vision for the company? I mean, to branch out of food?
So I think that right now we're solving a really large problem, and I think that it's important that we also remain focused on how do we do this at scale. We have, only scaled the surface of, what this issue is, and I have really big ambitions. We are very grandiose in our vision, but we're very pragmatic in our execution.
Right. And food is still the big problem.
Food is still the biggest problem. And you talk about basic, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's air, water, food. Food is a fundamental human right. It is a fundamental necessity. You can't talk about health, you can't talk about education if you're hungry.
Yeah.
Like, to quote Snickers, you're not you when you're hungry. So how do we solve that?
This is the Solutions Studio, and it's so clear what problem you're solving with this. I just want you to sort of take us back to 2016 when you were this idea was in germination, and finding out, getting the call that you were chosen as a mother of invention by a huge important corporation. What was that like?
It was mind-blowing. I mean, I had no idea what it meant to be a mother of invention, especially as a single woman. I'm like, what does that actually mean?
I'm not a mother.
I'm not a mother. But this is a good first child, if that was going to be a case. And so I think it really, I mean, what's extraordinary about Toyota and what's extraordinary actually about Mothers of Invention is that it is a group of the most badass women I know that have been summoned by a cause that's so much larger than them, and that have dedicated their lives to solve these massive issues, right? Whether it's water issues or shelter, or in my case is food insecurity. I mean, we have dedicated our lives to solving this, and to be recognized by a company like Toyota, by women in the world, for our dedication, for our resilience, for our relentless pursuit in solving these massive challenges. I mean, there is no greater honor.
And there are incredible women that attend the summit.
Amazing.
You have access to a large community of women that are trying to affect change.
Right.
How much has that sort of helped you come up with new ideas and new inspirations for Copia?
Yeah, I mean, everyone will say this, it's a very lonely job to be a CEO, to be a founder of something, and to know that there's other people out there. I mean, there's, of course, we have, especially because I'm in Silicon Valley, I have a huge founder community, I have a huge founder network and entrepreneur network. But there's something different when it's women, first of all, women founders, that are now solving these social causes and putting business models behind that, like we are, right? We are a for-profit company. We are not a nonprofit. Businesses pay us to do this. And so the goal is to scale this solution. And so to be with women who are also interested, who, talk like I talk, walk like I walk, bleed the same type of blood, in the sense that we have dedicated ourselves not just to growing our company, growing our team, growing ourselves, but also solving these massive, intractable problems, and in our case, the world's dumbest problem.
I think a lot of the women here are such great communicators.
Yeah.
And going back to your business model, when you are sort of pitching your idea to a business, what's the return on investment for them to do this? I mean, isn't it cheaper for them to just throw the stuff away? How do you sell it?
Yeah, so I mean, it's actually not anymore, right? So if you think about even countries like France where they have banned food waste, and it's not a slap on the wrist, it's an $80,000 fine punishable by 2 years in jail for businesses that don't cooperate in donating their excess food. Do I think that's going to happen in the US? Probably not anytime soon, but what is happening is that ordinances, cities across the country are banning food waste, and they're imposing massive fines on businesses and local jurisdictions that are throwing away their food.
So policy is starting to match your business model.
And then there's also the carrot and the stick, right? The carrot is also that these tax incentives that are in place that allows businesses, so, you know, restaurant chains, hotels, corporations to get, you know, tens of thousands to tens of millions of dollars back. They're getting back $1 per pound of food on average.
I see. So they get a tax break for donating because it's a donation.
It's a donation. And it makes financial sense to do the right thing, you know, because it's money they would have otherwise left on the table or worse, in the trash.
Plus the data analytics that you're giving them to help them waste less.
These predictive analytics now help them understand what they need to be purchasing, what they need to be reducing on. So we're reducing over-purchasing, overproduction, disposal costs, composting costs. Composting isn't free, right? Like, you know, in the EPA food hierarchy, the first is like to not have waste, which, you know, is great, but we know that it happens. So the next is to feed hungry people with it. The least preferred methods are what 90% of businesses are currently doing, which is disposing it into the landfill or even composting.
Right.
And what we're trying to do is we're trying to get people back up the chain and to realize, like, one, you know, our predictive analytics, our data and analytics provide actionable insights to help businesses reduce waste, eliminate waste altogether. And for any waste or any surplus food that they do have that's still edible, we want it to feed people in need. And we want to like reframe this issue to show people, to show businesses, to show your audience that they can get involved in every which way, whether it's signing up their company, whether it's signing up their nonprofit. I mean, this is a movement that requires, yes, it requires my team and it requires my company, but it also requires everyone to act in every small or big way that they can.
Kamal, thank you so much for
so
sharing
much for
all
having
the recent successes. And I wish you and Copia all the best in the future. Thanks so much for joining us in the studio.
Thanks so much for having me.